Okay. Yep. It looks like it's recording now. So, hey, Monique, let's introduce the Celibate Vegan Voices podcast.
Woohoo!
So
The
I'm Chastity
CVV code, the best back of the credit card you could possibly get. Celibacy saves you a lot of money and trouble.
Yes, it does. That's kind of funny, yeah, because you wanted it to be the Celibate Vegan Voices, so it's CVV like the back of a credit card. But it's true, celibacy does save you a lot of money. So that's nice.
Cash back.
So
And let me tell you something out there. Celibacy sells. That's the new phrase, not sex sells. Celibacy sells. So the next time somebody says to you, oh, well, you should do that because you'll make money. No, no, no. Unless you feel good about what you're doing, you don't listen to those people, okay? Because sex causes a lot of problems. So celibacy sells, and that's our new motto.
yeah, and I think there's a lot we could say about that because we often hear the phrase that sex sells, and usually when I hear that phrase, I think of it in the context about how people add all sorts of sexual content to movies, thinking that's what makes a good movie and that that's why it sells. However, there is plenty of evidence to the contrary. Consider all the G-rated kids shows like My Little Pony that have so many fans in spite of the fact that there's no sexual content whatsoever, or many innocent Disney movies that don't have any sex scenes or anything because they're targeted towards kids, but boy, do they sell millions of copies. So people, first of all, they don't need to add sex to stuff to sell their products. Um, but I think that although celibacy is not as popular of an idea, there are certain groups of people who have successfully promoted the idea of celibacy, although they differ in how far they go. Because whereas we are talking about celibacy as a lifestyle choice, as more of a permanent thing, as we've talked about previously, there are many religious groups, particularly Christian type groups, that promote abstinence till marriage.
Yes.
And they have their ways that they promote that. And I've read a lot of that material. I've listened to a lot of that growing up, being raised in Christianity. But what I found particularly interesting, I don't remember the title of this book, but this guy had published a book about all the reasons you should not have sex before marriage. And yet every single one of the reasons in that book why you should not have sex before marriage was also a reason why you wouldn't want to have sex when you are married, because you still get pregnancy, you still get sexually transmitted diseases, you still have all kinds of other sort of relationship power dynamics and heartbreak that comes as a result, and having a marriage certificate doesn't change that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, there are many thoughts I have, but how would you approach the topic?
Well, tonight, actually, setting aside what you just said, yeah. I wanted to make this topic about how this lifestyle should be infused with a religion, because yeah. I feel that it would make it more formalized. Right now, like you said in the book, and many religions say wait till you're married and then do it. So that's called abstinence. That's not celibacy. Yeah. It's not. And people need to, really distinguish the difference here. Now, I know in the Bible, it actually talks about celibate times in your marriage so that you could come closer together. I don't know where it is, but people have mentioned that. I guess you could maybe say celibacy, but to me it still seems like abstinence, because you're you're going to come back to it. I just feel that there needs to be an encompassing religion that states that even if you get married, and I believe that there's some good things of getting married, because I mean, in a perfect marriage, nothing's perfect, but you would be helping one another through life. It would be like your companion, which is exactly why people say my life partner now. A lot of people don't say
Yeah.
husband and wife, because talk about power dynamics. You know, husbandry, there was, the definition of that is, I'm in control, wifey, but life
Yeah.
partner, balances it out. Of course, people still say husband and wife, but
Yeah.
uh, I, I, I know that there's people that don't want to subscribe to religion these days. This is a more secular society than we've ever had. Um, there's many different faiths and different philosophies and whatnot. I know that there's a lot of people that instead of calling themselves religious, they call themselves spiritual, which I believe that that's what I would call myself. I have like a hodgepodge of things going on with me, and it's not just because of me believing in these belief systems due to philosophy or like, oh, that's a good idea, but I just feel that I've gone through so much education on different different like levels. I mean, just really quickly, I went to public kindergarten, then I went to Catholic grade school from first to eighth grade, then I went to public high school from ninth to 12th, a public university, and then a private university that was so liberal for my MFA. I mean, really liberal. Like, like people now they're walking around, but 20 years ago, like people looked like on campus like some people do now, like in Oregon or whatnot, the piercings and the tattoos and black, dyed hair, and that was just like, that was odd. You didn't see that in a lot of places. But anyway, um I lived in New York City, and the city with like 80 different cultures, and I just met a lot of people, and I listened to what they had to say as far as who they believed in, what they believed in. And that's why right now, I'm like, who's to say? I still believe that Jesus is my protector, because I have had some instances where I believe he was with me. That does not say though that the universe has a consciousness. That's what scientists say. And that's not to say that like Hinduism is good in some portions, where they believe that, a lot of them believe that ancestors might be coming back as cows or whatnot. And that's, as far as I know, that's why they they don't eat meat, because they believe that their ancestors might come back as, animals and whatnot. Who's to say that reincarnation isn't correct? Who's to say that Jesus, if he's coming back, won't come back as someone else? I mean, there were other stories in history where the story of Jesus was very, very similar in other ages, just with different names. So that's why I pick a hodgepodge of things. Even Buddhism, the main message of that, even though there's some like oddness about it because some of the monks have set themselves on fire, their main message is peace. So that's why I take a little smattering of that. And the Seventh Day Adventists, we mentioned this in the last episode, they lived the longest out of any group in America because of how they take care of their body. Like, a lot of them are vegetarians, some are vegans. They're not all vegans and vegetarians, but a lot are. They don't take caffeine, they don't take alcohol, and I don't believe they smoke. So this is just, at this point, we have so much education. This is common sense. These things take years off of your life, and they respect their body. So I take a little bit of that too. So that is all to say that if you talk to anybody in these religions, they all believe that the marriage is consecrated when you have sexual intercourse. And that's where the conversation always stops with me, because I always feel like, oh, well, if I say what I think, then they're going to just shake their head and disagree with me. I was talking to a pastor last night on Spirit Air, if he sees this by chance, and he was really, he was, I don't know if I should give his name, but his first name begins with a C. Let's just put it that way. And he said that it was very interesting, the show that we had, and he wants to check them out. Then he said that he has a singles group, and it's encouraged that they wait till they're married. So even though I was interested in talking to him about our perspectives and whatnot, at the same time, I was a little bit concerned. I said, watch the show, because I didn't want to get into any sort of controversy there. But he wasn't arguing with me. He's like the first person, like, in a religious sect that's never really debated with me about being totally celibate, even in marriage. So anyway, but yeah, but he's the only one. And I think to myself, well, maybe we could, I know that there's other people that believe as we do, just like you've said, but maybe there's more people out there that don't want to do this. Of course, asexuals. I don't want to get into the whole, like, asexual versus celibate, but I just want to say, to me, it doesn't make sense if you don't have any sort of sexual attraction or you don't want to do it, then just be celibate. But a lot of them compromise themselves, or they think, oh, well, I'm not sexually attracted, but yeah, I'll do it. Like, it's okay. It's okay.
Which is weird, because basically that's like eating a food that you don't want to eat. It's the way I've always thought about this is they lack sexual attraction or they lack sexual desire, but they still have sex either for financial gain or because that's the price they have to pay to get the partner to stay with them that they're in love with. And they don't really want to have sex, but they're afraid the person will leave them if they don't have sex with them, which often happens. So basically, they're doing something that they don't want to do. Therefore, all sexual activity that they do is technically they're being raped. They may not call it that, but they're being forced to do something against their own desires. You know?
Well, I agree with that, and I'm not going to say who, but I was in this relationship where, and but we made a pact. We made a promise that even when we got married, that we would not do that. And then there were a couple breakups, and then we were thinking about getting together again. And then he said that if we got married, he might want to do that. And I just, like, flung myself on my bed. I remember he was sitting on the couch. I flung myself on bed and I started crying. And I said, this feels like rape, because all the time that we had discussed that we weren't going to do that, and now he was changing his mind. And now it felt like the only way that we could maybe get back together was if I did that, when we were married. And so you're absolutely right. But back to this religion thing. So I was thinking, Well, I wrote down the title, and now I forget. Some sort of, what was it? Non-carnal spirituality, Christian
Yeah,
ethics, the
I don't
peaceful.
remember the exact title now, but
Well, look, I like a lot of the Christian ethics. I like the ethics, but I like the portions that don't create suffering or oppression. And unfortunately, there's stuff, as far as I'm concerned, that does cause suffering and oppression on others and in animals in Christianity. But if you remove those parts, then it would be pretty okay, like I mean the Ten Commandments are in there, and um
yeah,
there's
thou
a
shalt
lot
not
there's a
kill.
lot of good stuff in there, but this, I can't stand the fact that every single gosh darn religion does not offer celibacy for life with a life partner. They don't. Now, my great aunt had told me that somewhere in the Bible it said that you're only supposed to um, have relations for procreation. I have yet to find that in the Bible. She said this. She
Yeah,
thought
it's
that
not
I was
in the
right.
Bible.
She thought that I was right. But I don't know whether it's there or not. I know that there's parts in there that, say submit to the husband, and people say, "Oh, no, that's not what it means." But it's like things are twisted, and then you're
Yeah,
supposed to please each other, and who's pleasing who with this sex?
yeah,
I mean, let's face it. I've even if women do like it, and I do believe that there's some that do, like you said, it's a power thing. Even if she, this is getting a little bit graphic, but even if she's on top, like, I don't know. The fact of the matter is, her body is still being, for lack of a better word, invaded. It is. Because the man is more than likely going to have pleasure, and then, there's going to be an explosion. This is really graphic, but I'm just saying
yeah.
that however you look at it, there's some sort. And I told the pastor yesterday, I said it's body invasion. Oh, I was thinking about this joke. I'm gonna have to shape this, but did you ever hear of something called Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
No, never heard of that.
I think it might be a film. Well, anyway, as far as I know, and I'm only saying this in the context of educational reasons and the comedy, but some years ago, there was a derogatory name for a woman's private area, and it was called Snatch. And I thought to myself, invasion of the body snatchers. And I thought to myself, yeah, the snatch is being invaded in the body. I have to work it out.
I have to tell you this. Okay, I have to tell you this. Now, you remember that joke I posted on Facebook about what do you call an albino rooster born in China?
Yeah, I do. Now I get it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah. And the answer is Caucasian, because cock meaning rooster, which is in the Bible. That word is actually in the Bible. Um, basically it's an Asian by nationality, but it's a rooster. But it sounds like Caucasian, the single word meaning white people. So I thought it was funny. So I told it to this guy at work, and he took it wildly out of context. And so then somebody explained to me, basically, cock also has another meaning in sexual slang. So you catch my drift. So unfortunately, even my joke was turned into a sexual thing, which is not at all what I thought about when I came up with that. I wasn't thinking somebody was gonna be referencing that. You just can't say anything these days.
Well, I'm just saying because there is an invasion of the, invasion of the body snatchers. There is an invasion. I don't, man, even, look, we were all created, most of us were created this way because, you know, through the intercourse, unless you were artificially inseminated, or if your parents happen to be, you know, like the Virgin Mary. And I do believe that she existed, although some people don't. But
Well, well, you know, that's an interesting thing to bring up because why do you suppose it is that, according to the story and what Christians teach, that Jesus was born of a virgin? Why is that so important to the religion? Think about that one for a while. As if that's almost what makes Jesus who he was, because he wasn't conceived through sex the way everyone else is.
well, that's a great point there, Chandler. And then the fact where I told you about something I read today on Focus on the Family, it said that the act of sex is like the union of the Christ and the church. And I'm thinking to myself, how could two genitals plugged into one another be the reference of Christ and the church? That's disgusting to me.
You know, sometimes I really wonder, Monique, I wonder if it's actually sex that is the God people are believing in and worshiping. Because sometimes it seems that way.
I
Because
think so too.
I'll tell you something. Now, I'm the only celibate atheist that I know of, but let me tell you, from my exit of Christianity and seeing a lot of content from atheists, I've become very disillusioned with the atheist movement, if you could even call it a movement. Um, Here's what's weird about it. Atheism is kind of like asexuality in a way, because it's a lack of something that is so important to most people. But what I find is that atheists promote so much sexual content.
I've
There's
noticed
so,
that too.
like, you cannot get through one atheist podcast. You can't get through some conference of atheist speakers and their speeches without them making sexual jokes. You just can't. And it's like sometimes, okay, this sounds really sad, but sometimes I would rather watch Christian movies than, just because they have less sexual content. You know what I mean? Like, and at least they have the abstinence till marriage, so at least they're sort of less sexual, whereas atheists just go like wild and crazy, and they start
I
promoting
noticed.
all kinds of things.
I noticed that some of them are narcissists. I mean, you could say that of everyone, but I noticed there's a lot of narcissist atheists who think that they know it all. And also, I want to make mention, you probably heard in the news about that Jeffrey Epstein guy, right?
I know you've mentioned it before.
Oh, I'll try to say it very briefly. So, he was an older man that would have teenage girls come in, massage him, and then, you know, massage his he would have he would have relations with them. He had this best friend that would recruit girls to come in. He would fly them over to an island that he was on. Um, he had a few different locations, and he apparently a lot of big political leaders went on his plane, you know, his private plane, to these places. And like Clinton was on it, Bill Gates was on it. It was nicknamed the Lolita Express. And, you know, all these people are denying that they ever did anything with the teenagers. Um, Even there's a royal, I can't think of his name now, but in England, like he was just ousted out of the royal family because of his possible behavior. So this man, Jeffrey Epstein, did get in trouble, but he got a very light sentence, I guess, because of people he knew. And also, I think people were afraid that he would start telling people who else was doing this with him. And so he got out and he continued to do it. So just this past year, he was arrested, and he was in the high high status prison. Like, you're being constantly watched because this was huge. And there was one story where it said somebody had beaten him up, but then another said no, he tried to commit suicide and he was on suicide watch. But then all of a sudden what happened was they say he committed suicide. But here's the thing. There were like 1 or 2 cameras that were directly pointed to Cell that weren't working, and or the footage got ruined. And then there were 2 people that were said to like not have been there when he did it. But I mean, I don't know, it just doesn't sound right. Like, and then there was this hyoid bone that was cracked or whatnot, and usually that means that the person was strangled, that they didn't take their own life.
Sounds suspicious, like
It's
somebody
very, very
murdered.
suspicious.
Yeah. It
Very,
sounds
very
like somebody murdered
suspicious.
him and then tried to
And
cover it up.
so he used to give big donations to different causes, and he was into science, and he gave huge donations, if not the largest, to MIT, which is this huge scientific university. MIT, all right? And
Isn't
this
that
one,
the isn't that
what?
the Missouri Institute of Technology? I thought that's what MIT stood for.
It is Institute of Technology, but I don't know what the M is, and this is in New York. I mean, we're talking, genius level type of scientists go there. And so this one man who had been given these grants and whatnot, I don't know if he went on the airplane. I really don't know, but he used to socialize with this Jeffrey Epstein. Like, he's in hot water now, but he's saying no, it's wrong. They're all saying that they didn't do anything, but I'm just trying to say that this high tech university, I mean, this is famous throughout the world. MIT, you'll have to look it up. I mean, maybe there's an MIT in the state you live in, but I don't know if there's an affiliation. But all I'm trying to say is you would think that these, I mean, some of them are women, but most of them are men that go to this university. They're, really heady into science and whatnot. And you would think that these people, because of their intellect, would have a little bit of more moral compass. But no, the university took these large donations from him, and apparently some of them knew what he did. And probably they engaged with what he offered them as far as like these women. And I'm not saying that they're believers or atheists, but you got to admit that actually like maybe more so now there's some scientists that are coming more into the spiritual angle, and the universe has a consciousness. But for many years, a lot of people in the science, men mainly in the scientific community, have been atheists. And I think that you're right. Like, I don't feel comfortable with them. And a
Yeah.
lot of it is because of that sexual, weirdness.
Yeah.
And there's
Well,
been plenty of women that have said that they have gotten sexually harassed and, all sorts of things from the science community, from the computer community. Like, now it's coming out, Google, like the big head honcho, having inappropriate sexual relations. And it's really, you know, you think that, oh, women only suffer sexual harassment in jobs that are more like service oriented, where it's going to happen, or like if you're a pole dancer, or if you're a nurse or something, you're tending to the person's bedpans and whatnot. But it's not true. Like, you can be a very high level intelligent female, but if you're going into these primarily male dominated industries, especially if they have no, like, to me, like, spiritual ethics or whatnot, then you're going to be targeted, especially if you're a younger woman and you want to rise. And that's what happened, because a lot of younger women, they don't want to take this anymore.
Yeah.
The older
Yeah.
women, like, they took it more. And that's why it went, like, unsilenced. But the younger women, they're not doing that anymore. And I think that's why things are changing more rapidly. But it's like, you have these older guys, and that's, like, the way that they think. So anyway, thank you for bringing that up. I don't want to say all atheists are like that. And you and I have already talked, too, that not all atheists, like, are completely unethical.
Yeah.
They're not.
Well, I think it's important to mention that the basis for being a Christian or an atheist or whatever your belief system, you should not subscribe to that belief system just because of the behavior of certain people who claim that same label. You know what I mean? And people, they mistakenly have said something about me that's just absolutely false. They think the reason that I'm not part of Christianity anymore and that I call myself an atheist, they think it's just because I was mistreated and abused by people in the church I knew, the Christians, which is true, but that's not what it's about. It's about actually not believing the teachings of the Bible, and also all of the claims that Christians teach that are not in the Bible anyway. They just completely make up on the spot to suit their own needs. So I don't trust them. I don't believe in either their ethics or their metaphysical beliefs or whatever. But so while I agree with atheists in general in that I don't subscribe to any religion just like them, that doesn't mean I agree with their ethics or lifestyle necessarily. There are a few that I like. However, of all of the famous atheists, there are not many good role models. There really are not that many good role models. Although one thing I have noticed that's odd is the majority of vegans that I come across tend to be non-religious. They tend to be atheist or agnostic, because I find more pushback and resistance to veganism by Christians than any other group, which is really strange. But I can also see there's plenty in the Bible for them to point to defend carnism as well. So yeah, as far as making a religion, because that's what we were going to talk about, is how would somebody make a religion or something like it that people recognize and respect, and that veganism can become more mainstream like that. And I feel like there's a certain...
And celibacy. And
yeah.
celibacy. The
Yeah,
two of them. Celibacy for life.
Yeah,
Without having to be a priest or a nun. Again, it's just not fair. I don't want to be in a religion that says, oh, well, you're not really married if the penis doesn't go into the vagina. I mean, what the heck? Oh, that means I have to be a hermit for the rest of my life because I don't want that? That's not right.
Yeah, well, that's what's weird about it, because like you were saying earlier, there is no religion that actually supports the idea of something like a celibate marriage. Like, it's weird. What's weird is that technically, from what I've read, maybe you can correct me since you have more of a Catholic background than I do, but here's what I've read. I've read that the priests have to be single for their whole life. They have to be unmarried, and And what's weird about that is that for them that implies that they're celibate, kind of. You know what I mean? People think that, well, if you're celibate, then you're unmarried. And the way I've even heard them say it before is that when you have sex, that makes you married in God's eyes or whatever. So people are equating the genital stuff with whether someone's married or not, which actually that brings up a whole nother set of questions, but that would go on forever. But
Go ahead, we have time.
Yeah, okay. So if it is the sexual intercourse with the genitals and all that that makes you married, then when they tell people to be abstinent till marriage, then how does that work? Because if the act of doing that is what makes you married, and you're not supposed to do it until you're married, then isn't that a contradiction? If your marriage is not valid, if it's not consummated until you have sexual intercourse, but you're told not to have sexual intercourse until you're married, like, what?
So you're saying that there's a brief period of time where their marriage hasn't been consecrated. In other words, the priest says, "I now pronounce you man and wife." Kiss the bride, right? Okay?
Yeah.
And so there's the portion of time between him announcing that you are married and then until you go to the bed and do that you're actually you're in limbo or something.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, so if those people don't actually have sex because they decide to do something else instead, and it turns out they're asexual, and they just don't care about it, then their marriage is technically never consummated. So in religious terms, they're still single, but they're living together as a couple, just not having sex.
Yeah. It's very hurtful. That could cause a lot of pain. And I had gone with one person from Europe, and when I said I didn't want children, then he said, "Oh, then that's like we're boyfriend and girlfriend." Like, even if we got married, that's how he equated it. That he didn't think that was a marriage. We'd just be like boyfriend and girlfriend, not husband and wife, if we didn't have a child. So, like, that's taking it another step.
Okay, so wait, I'm confused now. So supposedly, procreation is what makes a marriage valid now? Who comes up with these rules?
That's what I mean. In fact, he never heard of a female that didn't want to have biological children. Yeah, he was from Bosnia.
Come on, give it the time. There's a TED Talk. There's a TED Talk about that, you know? There are many blog posts. Of course, now we have the internet. And I think a lot of people are still stuck in the pre-internet generation. They never hear about this stuff because, of course, you're not going to hear about this in your local circle of people you know. But there are people out there. There are a lot of people who are celibate, or you wouldn't even hear about vegan most of the time if it wasn't for the internet. But yeah, these people exist. We know it.
Well, I remember this one older man, and he was working with me with acting, but I know that he liked me, and I didn't know that until it was too late. But regardless, he was like saying that I'm like a monk. Like, I did I remember stating about celibacy, and he said, like, I live like a monk. Then he went off and he told somebody else that I was wild. He totally like flipped the switch. I mean, wild because I'm an actor and I like to dance. I don't know if that constitutes wild, but then to me, he's like, you live like a monk. So I'm telling you, I've had some really upsetting situations. I'm so glad that I can talk to you. And I'm going to give you my reveal right now. My reveal is, you are my best friend.
Well, didn't the whole world already know that?
Well, I don't know if they knew that or not, but you are. Chandler has been, listening to me on and off the air, and I mean, I don't really, I can't connect with anybody else on so many levels than you. I mean, seriously, you truly, truly have helped me more than I believe any sort of counselor could. Because, you and I have talked before. I'm not saying that counselors can't help, but can you please show me a counselor with the same ethics as me? Because I don't know any. I don't know any that are like celibate in and out of marriage. I don't know any that are also vegan.
Yep.
I don't know
Don't
any
find
that
that.
are like, and then put the arts in there too. Because most people, they go to one job, or they might go to a few jobs because, bill paying or whatnot. But when you go to like different places, I mean, I'm constantly being interviewed, you might as well say. That's why I've been at risk, because I don't know these people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can go to one interview, get the job, and then that's it. But that's not how it works with the acting. You have to keep going and going and going, and that's why this has happened, because people know that you're well, they think you're desperate, for the next job or whatnot. That's why people have been able to prey on other people. And tonight I went to something, I won't disclose it, but let's just say that uh they're students, like filmmakers. And I really only went around to the females because now I'm like so concerned, like, because of all this stuff, in the news and some of the things that have happened to me. But I also just felt comfortable because they were younger. And I think that most of the guys, they probably wouldn't, do anything. You never know, but I don't think so, because I feel that a lot of the younger guys, they're just more respectful. They're not like the older men in the system that could get away with it, and and so I look younger, and I think I kind of like blend in, and I just feel better. Like, I almost feel like this is my second chance at doing some of the acting that I really want to do without thinking about this pressure, the sexual pressure. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's certainly not an easy industry to be in because it's expected so much. Because yeah, I think that's the thing, is that it's different because some jobs are not going to include people being sexual or being talked into being sexual, like an acting roles in the entertainment industry. So it is a hard profession. Um, and you know what? Obviously, it's hard for females, but I think it would be hard for males too. Because if they're committed to celibacy, they might have objections to doing sex scenes and other things that they would be expected to do to get roles in movies and stuff. And
Actually, it's good that you said that, because there's this one actor, Ryan Felipe, and from what I hear, he didn't want to do any sex scenes. It was, I guess he was Christian or whatnot. He came from this same area as me. And before you know it, he's doing sex scenes. He got, I don't know what happened. I guess he felt like he had to or whatnot. And so you're right about that. I
that's
also I want you to finish that, but remind me to mention about, if you, I don't know if you saw that video. I sent you a video of this guy who's telling like the men, um it's not good what they've done to the women, like with the sex, and that they're degrading. Did you see that?
I've watched a lot of stuff you sent me. I don't know which one that is specifically. I probably watched it, but I can't
Okay,
remember
well,
for certain.
anyway, finish what you were saying. The men, they don't want to.
Yeah, see, because I know there are gonna be some men who are not willing to do those types of things. And unfortunately, here's the issue. I think a lot of people, what's happened is they started out thinking they could get a career as an actor or something, but then they're faced with this decision. They either have to do these things that they don't really want to do in order to make money, or they send themselves into complete poverty, and have to give up their whole dream. And neither one of those is good. Both are sad, because either you're going against your beliefs or you're throwing yourself into poverty, ending up homeless or something. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you do? So a lot of people will compromise just to survive, and I feel bad for them. You know what I mean? um, it, it's a rough business to be in. Like, obviously, you've invested so much into it at this point, but I'll tell you, if I knew somebody, if I knew some friend who was considering becoming an actor, or something like that, I would tell them, you probably don't want to get involved in that. There's some bad stuff that goes on, because I've heard so many stories from you alone, besides all the other articles of what's gone on. It's got to be the hardest thing to do. But this I have to say, even if somebody is not a celibate and they're not an asexual, does that not bother them to pretend on recorded video that's going to be seen by millions of people, to pretend that they're having sex with somebody? Does that not bother them? And you have to ask yourself, would anybody do that if money wasn't involved? If you take money out of the equation, would anybody do that? I think not. I really
No,
don't.
I don't
Because
think so.
it's got to be uncomfortable, because it's just a lie. It's not true. Obviously, not everything you see in a film is going to be truth, because it is a fictional story often, for entertainment. But something like that, how can that just be entertainment? That's got to screw with somebody's head.
Hmm.
It's got to mess them up. And how do they do that? How does somebody go and do this role where they're acting like they're having sex with somebody and kissing and doing who knows what, and then go home to their husband or wife and then get intimate with them? How does that not bother them? Like, they were doing this with this complete stranger and then doing this with their spouse. Does you think that would mess them up?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, actually, some roles do mess people up, and I'm not even talking about that. You have
Yeah.
to have a technique to come out of it, because if you don't, it's like a mental illness, actually. So you do
Yeah.
have to have a technique to come out of that. And
And,
and some people don't come out of their characters so well.
you know,
So,
here's the thing. Now, bringing us back to our original topic, because sometimes we get onto interesting stuff and
you
get
do.
sidetracked. So I was thinking, now religion tends to be a very strong force in many people's lives,
Right.
and because there's immense pressure, there's social peer pressure from friends and family and society in general. There's the financial pressure for people to do things that they don't want to do, and if that's the only way they think they can make money, there's all this pressure. And as much as I don't like the religions that I know of in the world, often religions will be the only thing that gives those people the strength to resist all that pressure from all the rest of society, and to stick with what they know is right in spite of all that opposition. Now, obviously, I don't have some religion to point to that gives me strength. For me, it's just purely about what I know is the right thing for the animals and for myself and for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a theory that, you know, some people have more moral muscle than others.
Yes.
Some people are just stronger than others, able to do, you know, the heavy lifting they have to do to live through their tough life and their ethical choices. Just as people physically, some are stronger than others.
Yes.
But what we need to do is we need to find out how can we give others the strength to stick with what they really want to live like, instead of just being, you know, how do they resist when the financial pressure is on and their whole family is criticizing them and talking them into doing things they don't want to do? You know, what do we have to give them that strength? And for some people, their religion, whether it be Christianity or anything else, gives them the strength to resist things, but sometimes it's not enough. It's not enough often, because sometimes there's not enough of a foundation in what their beliefs are, and they believe things just because it's in an ancient book or because somebody told it to them all their life. So what we have to do is we have to figure out, what is it that keeps people like you and I going? And we have differences of beliefs. You come from a more spiritual whatever type thing, and I'm just a complete, you know, atheist, and I just don't mess with religion because it just, I find I always disagree with it. But what if there is something that we have in common? What if there's that strength that we have in common, and if we can identify what that is and package that in a way that other people can use, maybe that would be a lot of help.
But I still feel that if you're in one of these formalized religions that say that if you get married, the way to make the union is to have the intercourse, most people are going to do it if they're truly into that religion. And it's interesting because, you know, a lot of the younger people are more accepting of gay people, even if it's not in the religion, but they still are. Also, I've noticed that some of them will have the premarital intercourse. It's interesting. But besides that, anybody who's in the religion is going to think that if you get married, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel that even if we could box up what it is between us that, you know, allows us to give this strength, it's still not going to be enough for those people, because they're going to believe that within the religion, that's what their marriage has to do. I mean, they're counseled by pastors that talk about that, you know,
Yeah.
priests, nuns. I mean, you can't get away from it. I mean, if in the religion it could say, well, look, we feel that it's best for you to be celibate in the religion unless you want to have children. And to even go further, we feel that at this time, there are enough people in this world, and a lot of them don't have love. So we feel that if you want to have like a family besides the two of you and want to adopt, you know, adopt, like, you know, like, I mean, people are so into adopting shelter dogs. So how come it's not the same thing for humans? Now, obviously, at some point, if that was the way it would be, there would be no young people anymore, because everybody would be celibate, not doing it. And you and I are anti-natalists. But let's not
Yeah.
go like too
That would
far,
be
too
a dream
fast
come
here.
true.
What I'm trying to say is at least give this option, but there's no option There's
Yeah.
no option in it. And that's why I think that we need to start either a church or a religious organization. Now, what's the difference? The religious organization is more of a nonprofit. It's a philosophical. It's, it's a way that you can raise money for the cause, and
Well,
people can gather. But the church is an actual, like, it's formalized. Like, it's, well, what can you say? It's a
yeah.
religion.
Actually, okay, so two quick things. First of all, we're already at 55 minutes.
Oh, well, people like it. They'll keep listening.
Yeah, because we can't stop it now. We're deep into this now. That's how it always happens. We get going. But second of all, now I read that link you sent me about, like, the IRS and the tax exemptions and all that sort of stuff. And here's what I find weird about it is that there are certain things the government recognizes as a valid religious organizations or a valid church, and they have all these rules about them not participating in politics and stuff like that.
I saw
Yeah.
that too.
Well, and see, I was actually part of a church. Okay, I was a part of a church, and this was back a long time ago. It probably was 2010. It was a long time ago. And the church was leaving the denomination it was associated with. It was associated with the Presbyterian denomination because they had some differences of belief and didn't all agree with everything that denomination taught. But then they were trying to figure out, well, what religious organization or denomination do we join? And I was in this meeting that they were discussing this, and I said, well, why do we have to join ourselves to any particular thing? Why can't we just believe what we believe and be what we are? And they said, well, it gets complicated, with the government and tax exemptions. I was basically being told, well, we have to be part of a legally recognized religion that the government likes so that we can be tax exempt. And so I see, oh, this is all about money and taxes and pleasing the government. That's what it's about. So basically, the whole thing was a scam. Because let me tell you, when you believe something, then you believe it and you keep at it, just as you have done, regardless of whether it's to your personal financial benefit. And I got to mention, for anybody who's listening to this show, not enough people listen to our show, but you listen, but wake up and pay attention now, because Monique and I are not being paid anything for this. We've never been paid for doing this show. And we do the best we can with our limited technology when it works and our busy schedules. And we talk about these issues that no one else is talking about. And if somebody is looking for financial gain, if your goal in life is to make money and have people like you and have a good reputation and have an easy life, then basically you just have to be a people pleaser and just go by everybody else's rules and forget yourself and what you want. And I couldn't live like that. I could not live with myself if, people call those people an ass kisser. That's what they call them. I've heard that term. But basically, they're just trying to please everybody around them, usually for financial reasons. And that's no life worth living. It's not. But yeah. So I found.
So what are you trying to say that we should make this religion, but we don't have to do it by the government standards with the IRS? And I mean,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not sure. All I know is that I would like to be able to point to a religion and say, well, such and such says that celibate marriages are great and veganism is the ultimate diet because you're not hurting anyone. I would love to point to that, but I can't.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the deal. Here's where it gets really good because let's say we start our religion or something like that, and then somebody questions you about something, and like, oh, well, my religion teaches that we should respect life and not kill animals and keep ourselves pure and not corrupt ourselves with sexual relations. And they'll be like, well, what religion is that? And I'll be like, yeah, the religion that I made up. Like, But see, here's the thing. There was a time. Now, I used to do that podcast, the Free Will Science and Religion podcast with the other co-hosts.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to make it a government approved 50c3 whatever organization and tax exempt and all that. And I was the only one against the idea. I was the only one against the idea. Because to me, the way I felt about it was that then that's like us asking us, the government's permission, whether or not they approve of what we do or not. And I don't like that. I don't like to have to ask the government about whether what I'm doing is okay. I don't like to have to ask my mother if what I'm doing is okay. I want to do what I do. It's my life. You know what I mean? I want to do what I believe in is right, and I don't like playing by the rules somebody else sets. Because right. First of all, if they're not a celibate, and if they're not a vegan, who are they to tell us whether we're right or wrong? Why should we listen to them? I'm not right. going to listen to murderers and rapists. First of all, right. All those politicians and people in the government are rapists. We know it. So I'm not going to listen to them. I don't play by their game.
And one other thing that you just said, which I would like to interject. It's odd that the government does get involved with the religions. I guess it's a money thing.
Yeah.
Because the law says separation of church and state. But that doesn't seem very separate to me if they're the ones that make it formalized.
Yeah, because when you look at like that link you sent me and those rules, there are strict limitations on the political activism that churches can do. Mm-hmm. So here's the way it works.
Let me say, a lot of them were for Trump because they thought that he was going to do certain things that they wanted done. So even though that says it on that page, where they're not supposed to become involved in politics, they must do it in such a way because there were, all the evangelicals were pretty much on board with voting him in.
Yeah, which is very weird. I've never understood why the Christians like Trump so much. But here's the thing: is what I have known is that in churches they may not be able to do publicly in the media do a campaign promoting a politician, but they still teach in their church. They teach those people sitting in the pews who they should be voting for and why. So people are getting sermons fed to them about why they should vote for Trump or whoever else. And I remember specifically there was a certain church I was part of, and in fact it was the last church I attended before I gave up on the whole idea, where there was a certain politician running for local office, and he visited that church, and they were encouraging people in that church to promote him. And so I've seen enough to realize churches are trying to politically influence in any way they can. They're finding ways to do it, even if it's not out on the public. They do it, and they are basically indoctrinating people. Well, if you're a Christian, here's who you need to vote for, and who would Jesus vote for, and all this stuff they're teaching them. I've heard some pretty bad stuff in churches. So
wow. I think that what you're talking about, Catholic is considered Christian too, but I think some of the more fundamental Christian churches, it seems like they could tend to be the most persuasive and corrupt when it comes to these politics. Because I've never heard that before in the Catholic Church. Never did they bring in a politician to speak. It's always the same thing. It's like the priest, they do a homily, which is what a portion of the Bible is about. There's a couple Bible stories, and it's like we stand, we sit, we kneel, we sing. It's the same thing. But I noticed that in regular Christian churches, it just seems like there's a bit more free form going on, and maybe that's why these people are out in.
Yeah, see, a little bit of a history lesson for those who don't know. Now, Monique, do you know about the Protestant Reformation and what happened with Martin Luther back a long time ago?
Can you please refresh my mind?
Yeah,
I know that
okay.
it broke away.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Now, the Catholic Church back hundreds of years ago was doing some unethical things. And one of the things that I specifically remember they were doing is that they were trying to convince people that if they paid the Catholic Church money and bought indulgences and stuff, they could buy the salvation of their dead relatives, people who'd already died, so they want to go to heaven. Like, they acted like they had the power to make them go to heaven instead of hell. And they were getting money from people. They were convincing people they had to give them money and that they had the power to save people's souls.
Wow.
And that, along with many other things, this guy named Martin Luther, he wrote a whole bunch of things that the Catholic Church was doing wrong that he disagreed with. And then he wrote this big old thing called the 99 Thesis or something, and nailed it to some door of the Catholic Church somewhere. And he got in big trouble. And they tried to kill him over and over. And there were people who opposed him, and then there were other people who supported him and agreed with him. But here's what happened. He disagreed with the Catholic Church. He wanted to reform it. But what ended up happening instead is that many other people also rejected and turned against the Catholic Church. And they all kind of started off their own movements. They all started their own movements. And now we have over 33,000 different Protestant denominations in the United States alone. And then there's the Eastern Orthodox, and then other religious groups that may exist in other countries that I've never even heard of. And what happened is it's not regulated at all. The one thing the Catholics have going for them is that they still have a basic organization. That they're the Catholic Church. There's a certain agreement among the Catholic churches that they're all respect the authority of the Pope or whatever, you know. But the Protestants are all each off doing their own thing. So that's what it's not as regulated when you think about it. I kind of think that the Protestants, in a way, became worse than the Catholics in that regard, and that there's no central thing. And then every denomination, not to mention each individual person in a church, is going to take the same verse of the Bible and interpret it a different way. And then they cherry pick. Some use it to promote carnism and some veganism. You know, some people can point to verses that seem to promote celibacy. Other people will promote the sexual parts and be fruitful and multiply and all this weird stuff. And people can take the Bible and they can come up with church teachings to support any view. And that's the weakness of religion. It's weak is that people just redefine it and change the beliefs and make their own religion every time they disagree with something. So somebody's like...
Which is what we want to do.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing now. The only difference between us and other people who start their own organizations, whether you call it a religion or philosophy or whatever you call it, is that everybody else decides, hey, for example, here's what gay people did. Now, they said, well, I want to have sex with people of the same sex as me, so I'm going to start a homosexual church. And I kid you not, there are homosexual churches where they're full of gay people. They started their own churches. But there, as far as I know, there's no Church of the Celibates or Church of the Celibate Vegans. I never heard of it. And it would be hard to invent such a thing because we're all scattered throughout the globe. We only find each other through the internet, the few of us that there are, you know? And I think that may be the only reason such a thing has not already arisen. Because we have to admit that, first of all, veganism, as you know, is rare. The idea that somebody completely commits to not hurting animals and changes their lifestyle to avoid animal products, that is exceptionally rare. And then there's asexuality, of course, which I know is not the same as celibacy, but I'm making a point here. First, we know that people who lack sexual attraction are exceptionally rare. Like 1% of the population is what I've always heard. So they're exceptionally rare. But then among the asexuals, it's exceptionally rare for them to actually be celibate, because they may say they're asexual, but they're still having sex to please their partners or for whatever. You could be an asexual prostitute and have sex with people to make money. You could totally do that besides not having a desire for sex yourself. So here's the thing is, somebody who's a vegan and a celibate is the rarest of all. It's the exceptional rarest. And then on top of all that, if it wasn't weird enough, I'm also an
To me, it's not weird. Everybody else is weird. We're the normal ones.
Well, of course, Monique. Of course, it's not weird to us because that's the way we are. So basically, we think we're right and everybody else is wrong.
But we are right. How could people not think that we're not?
I know, but think about it. Okay, so think about it. I'm also an atheist on top of the celibate and the vegan, which is exceptionally rare, because even atheists are very rare. Because I'll tell you something, you probably know this, but most people do believe in some sort of God or some sort of higher power or something like that. And I actually think many different religions are interesting, but where they fail and why I don't subscribe to any of the known world religions is until they first convince me that they have ethics, I'm not listening. I don't care about whether they have the correct story about how the universe began or whether there's a deity that created things. I don't care about that. If they're not a celibate vegan, if they are not trying to live a good life, then why would I listen to them about other things? And they may be very well be right about certain teachings of their religion. They may be right, but why should I care about that?
Right. And it just makes me uncomfortable. The few times that I've been into these fundamental Christian churches, I've just been uncomfortable because they point out about homosexuality. Sometimes they'll talk about, like, sex and be pure, and then they just talk about, like, they push so much the marriage. I feel that they still, like, think that women are below the men. I don't feel comfortable at all. In Catholic, like I said, it's like a formula. It's some, like, Bible stories, a homily, up and down songs. Like, I feel that you could be at peace, and I don't think that they poke you as much as some of, like, the Christian churches do. That's all I can explain. I did hear, though, before, this was years ago, the Catholic Church, talking about homosexuality. I haven't heard that recently. I only go several times a year during holidays. It's usually with my mother. There's a certain peace to it, but just like you, I think to myself, the other pieces of the puzzle are not here, and that makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Now, if we, and also we should define some terms, because what really is the difference between a religion and a philosophy? When you think, like, because some people prefer philosophy over religion, because those words have different meanings, and I have my idea of what it kind of means, but you can let me know also what you think the difference is.
All right.
Do you
Well, go
want to
ahead.
start?
Uh, I to me, philosophy, I when I hear philosophy, I think more of a personal philosophy, something that I have extracted somewhere from life experience or listening to people, and this is what I believe. Whereas a religion is like a collective belief under a god or gods. That's all I could define it as.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of think of it that way. See, here's the thing: is a philosophy to me is about action. It's about how do you live, what do you do, or what don't you do. And if you notice on the Vegan Society's website, that it meant the definition of veganism is that it's a philosophy, to exclude all forms of animal exploitation and all this stuff. I don't remember the exact wording of it, but I think it's like vegan.org, and the Vegan Society, like the official definition.
I visited there before. Well,
Yeah,
actually, it was started in England, and then it moved. Well, it's in New Jersey. It's near where
yeah,
I'm from. And I never knew that. Like, it's been there since the 70s, and I
yeah.
went there for the first time several years ago.
Yeah, well, I included their definition of veganism in my book that I recently published. But see, that it's called a philosophy in there. So, and philosophy seems to be more about what you do, whereas religion, on the other hand, seems to be more about beliefs that don't seem to mean anything. Like, okay, like let's say that, yeah, some people believe that Jesus was born of a Virgin Mary, and some people believe in a God, that a God exists or that God does not exist. But what do those beliefs? What are the practical implications of those beliefs? And what I found difficult is that I didn't find a connection between those beliefs and the actions. Because, see, churches and religious organizations, they do have teachings, like they teach that you shouldn't have sex before marriage. I don't think they go far enough, because I think we should never have sex. But like they teach
That's why
that.
we're doing the show, Chandler. Remember?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, Monique. But yeah, so they teach this no sex before marriage thing, but where do they get this idea from? Because I cannot find it in the Bible, first of all. They just kind of make this idea up. And it actually has nothing to do with the rest of the Bible. Because, first of all, here's what a lot of Christians think that Christianity is about. It's about believing in Jesus the right way. They think that whether you go to heaven or hell, and this is how they teach it in Protestant. I don't know what the Catholics teach, but they teach it like that. Well, you have to believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, and that he lived and he died on the cross, and then he rose again from the grave after 3 days. And if you believe in him, you shall not perish but have everlasting life, or something like that. That it's all based on belief. And the thing is, I don't know what to believe about Jesus, but that I don't want to know that. I want to know, in this life, how do I live? And Christianity didn't give me the answers I needed for how to live my life. It all seems to be about, well, you want to make sure you believe the right things so that you go to heaven instead of hell. But what about now? Look, if there is a God, and if he did create me or anybody else with some purpose, which I don't believe, but if God did have a purpose for us, then why are we here? Why are we here on this planet, this earth? If we're here in this life, surely there must be something we're supposed to do. So my question is, what is it?
And exactly, that's why I said about the uh I said it before, the Hindu, the different lives coming back. What do you call it? The past lives and whatnot.
The
Yeah, the reincarnation, right. So, I mean, there's a part of me that feels, well, maybe you do come down to get it right. Maybe, and to get it right is to be kind and to be of service until you can go into the light. And personally speaking, I believe I probably did come down here several times. And I do believe I'm ready to go into the light. I really do want to live here a quality life. I would like to be like the oldest person, at least 144. I used to say 120. Because I want people to realize that because I live this way with my vegan diet, with my celibacy, with my ideals, with trying to be as positive as possible. Unfortunately, some of the things that have happened to me have, lowered my esteem, but then when I talk to you, I think to myself, dang, I really have done a good job. And I like to be of service to people. I don't mean, sexual service. I mean, I like to make them smile. I like to make them feel happy, and I like to give health information and whatnot. So yeah, I'd like to live for a while so that people can see, like she had a good life. But yeah, the reincarnation, like I don't see anything so like bad about it. Some people point the finger and say you only have one life. You're only judged one time. But I mean, who's to say that God couldn't change his mind? Yeah, I mean, or Jesus, or like I said before, maybe he's been here before. Maybe he'll come as a different, I don't know. I don't think any of us know. And how do we know that the Bible just ends at Revelations? Maybe it goes on, But one thing I did want to say to you about God and Jesus and atheists, it's very interesting because from what I understand, if you are in a pressing life situation where you think that you might lose your life, atheists start praying to God. I'm just telling you this. If a plane is about to go down, you will hear people saying God. I mean, so I don't know. Like, I feel that there's something innate in people that don't believe that maybe, just maybe, God is there to protect you. Just saying, you don't have to believe it, but.
Well, actually, I need to use the restroom, but I'll come back because we have so much to talk about. This is awesome.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna keep talking since he's going. As you noticed, I have this pillow, and this is a neck pillow because underneath my neck it was beginning to hurt. But right now I'm just propping myself up. I'm on my bed because it's comfortable, and my furniture has all clothes and stuff. I'm trying to clean. It's just a very slow process. I don't have gas because I don't want to pay another bill. So I have 2 space heaters, and my landlord took one out because he said that there was lint in it. So the place is pretty cold, but that's not the only reason that I don't want to have the gas. I don't like the smart meter. From what I understand, the smart meter that registers the gas, it can give cancer. So I don't want that to be in use. Therefore, I don't have any gas in my house. It's kind of an impoverished way of living, but at least I'm in California, so it's warmer. But not tonight. I think it's in the 40s. So last night it was cold. Also, I was drinking this. And I was laughing because I think that if I actually consume edibles and drinkables that are vegan and organic, they should be able to maybe be our sponsor sometime. But I mean, this would be great. All of a sudden I just started drinking it, and you might think that they're my sponsor because I started doing that, but it's really because I was thirsty. And this is tasty. It's called Rishi Chocolate Immunity Elixir by Rebel. Organic and ethically sourced. And here are the ingredients. Organic coconut milk, water, organic coconut cream, organic coconut sugar, which is very good coconut sugar, organic cocoa powder, organic acacia fiber, organic vanilla extract, pink salt, organic kilaha extract, organic reishi mushroom extract, 70% glucan, and organic stevia extract. I was just telling them that maybe they thought that this was a sponsor because I just started drinking it. That's like a great way to have sponsors, you know, right?
Yeah. Old Orchard 100% juice apple cranberry.
But where's your organic? We have to be organic too, because that's part of being celibate as far as I'm concerned. Having the cleanest food and drink that you possibly could have. But personally, I would like to have veganic instead of organic because I don't like the fact that there's manure that is on the stuff that I eat. You know, I mean, it's so interesting, Chandler, because, excuse me, I'm calling my co-host Chastity Rose from now on. So remind me if I slip
Yeah,
again.
thanks. Thanks for trying.
You're welcome. So, you know, people, if you get so impassioned about things, did this ever happen to you? They'll tell you that you should be, in other words, like if I get so impassioned about something that is with justice or whatnot, they'll say, well, you should be a lawyer. Or if you're like so into the vegan health and whatnot, oh, you should be a nutritionist. You know, or if I'm, you know, talking about organic and something, well, you should be a farmer. Like, how many things can I do? I'm just pointing out that these are the right ways to go.
And then, yeah, I know. And then if you say that you're celibate, then they're like, oh, well, you should be a priest or you should be a nun.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
like, you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to be like the first atheist priest. You know, like, because I'm not Catholic enough to be a priest like the other priests. Or, well, actually, I really want to be a nun. There's the whole transgender factor. So I identify as a nun. I've taken the vow of chastity.
Well, I told you, someone had told me that I was a nun in my six past lives. I have no idea how he, you know.
Now that one sounds believable. Yeah, see, it's very interesting because I don't know the details, but I do know that the vow of chastity is one of the vows that priests and nuns have to take, I believe. And that's why I named my book that title, The Vow of Chastity.
Well, I said a long time ago that I would consider being a nun, but I liked hugging and kissing too much. So, you know, and unfortunately, like, celibacy, well, to them, that's like no physical intimacy whatsoever, not just the intercourse, but
hey, I know you okay, you need to make your own movie, okay? So you are the romantic nun. You are the celibate but very romantic nun. So you don't have sex with anybody, but boy, do you kiss them. Don't you think that would sell if that movie could be made?
Yeah, actually, that would be good. That's a good comedy, dramedy, or whatnot. But see, again, like, I just want to reiterate where I stem from. I'm half Italian. My mom was always kissing and hugging me. My grandparents, my grandma especially, on the Italian side, always coddling me and whatnot. And I think that that plays a role on someone's being. So then when your love is transferred over to somebody of a romance, like, that same feeling that you got as a child or whatnot, being cuddled and whatnot, like you put that onto your romantic partner, you know? So I feel
Yeah.
that that's like part of it. But, you know, like, thank God my family, you know, there wasn't any incest involved with that. And so, like, I just feel that I needed that as a child growing up. I never needed sex. Never. And nobody's ever died of not having sex. But you know, there are babies that have been born to, you know, mothers who have addictions and whatnot. And from what I understand, they're shaking, they're weak. And there's people that go into the hospitals and they hug these babies. You know, for, I mean, lack of a better word, I mean, I hate to say it, but some people call them crack babies. And it's part of the rehabilitation to like cuddle them and whatnot, you know? They need that. And from what I understand, like everybody needs some sort of bodily contact. And I gotta admit that when I start like not and there have been some times where I just want to like be away from everybody because I have been sexually harassed and whatnot. I don't want to be touched by strangers. I don't like it because I don't know where they're coming from. But then if I remove myself too much, then I start feeling like something is missing. And a lot of times you know, before I just visited my family at home, I was hugging myself. You know, there's people that have, and I bought one too. I have this huge pillow. It's like in a horseshoe shape, and it cuddles you and it makes you feel like you're being held securely. So these are like things that, and then there's these blankets that are really, really heavy. I don't have one, but I put layers on, and that makes you feel secure too. So when I go home, and you know, my family is, I'm not going to say who, but quite older now. And unfortunately, you know, I don't see eye to eye on things as we talked about in the last show. But still, I can't discredit that the love, especially like growing up, and like I will always remember that. And like going back there and getting those hugs and stuff, it's actually rejuvenated my body. I feel more, I mean, it was very difficult to like manage, you know, the differing of opinions and whatnot. But the physical affection was still great, you know. I love you, blah blah, you know. I mean, so that's where I'm coming from. And you know, again, it's like the half Italian, we all know the romance languages, Italian, French, Latin, Spanish. These are people traditionally speaking that were more like, you know, huggy, whatnot. Whereas the Northern Europeans, the Irish, the English, the Germans, they were more like off put. And unfortunately, some of the romantic languages, they're the ones that unfortunately have more sexually harassed because
Yeah. Well, see,
yeah,
here,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, here's the thing now. Um, Unfortunately, here's the thing now. Of course, I didn't grow up with, you know, physical touch or hugging and stuff like that. I didn't grow up with that at all. Nor would I have been able to handle that, I don't think. But here's the problem. Because forms of physical affection like that are physical, people misinterpret. And they mix that with sexual things. And
yes,
for some odd reason, people think that hugging and kissing is some kind of an act that leads to sex. And where they get that idea is weird. Because I'll tell you, you know, there have only been very few times where somebody has hugged me or I've hugged somebody else, it was usually in a very strict set of circumstances, to comfort somebody who was having a hard time. Like how I would hug my mom because that was the only one I knew how to make her feel better. Sometimes, there was a time when I bought her stuffed animals to make her feel better because that was what I liked. So there's things like that, but unfortunately, those types of circumstances are very rare, and people these days, I think, have abandoned physical touch entirely because the risk of it being interpreted as some kind of sexual assault is too great. The risk is not worth it, you know. So that's unfortunate because for some people that's important. Some people like to be hugged, for example. It's just sad that they have to be deprived of that when they live a celibate life because people think that it's all the same thing. You can't go and hug and kiss somebody if they are a sexual being because for them that will turn them on sexually, and then they'll want to have sex with you. So it's sad because that's hard for someone like you because then you can't have that physical closeness with somebody because then you always have to be afraid of how are they going to take it, how are they going to feel about it, and that's just tragic.
And I've noticed that there's not that many hetero what do I call myself again? Hetero asexual romantic asexual what's the label? Hetero romantic asexual. I've noticed that there's not that many. And usually they're from other countries or there's a few females, but I've noticed that. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird thing because like personally, like I have a hard time figuring out what the romantic aspect means because I know now there's a distinction between somebody may have one sexual orientation, but they might have a romantic orientation that's different than their sexual orientation. And a lot of people, they go together, they're the same, so people think they're the same, but not entirely. And honestly, when I think about it, how would I know if I'm aromantic, heteroromantic, or homoromantic? How would I even know that? Because I've thought about that through the years, and I'm like, how would I know? Like I don't get it. Like I don't.
Well, romantic, I mean, it stems from romance, which was like love. So I guess on a simple level, romance is like a wooing, like, just complimenting each other or eating with a soy candle now.
What does candles have to do with this?
or, you know, to me, romance does not have to do. Romance really isn't sex. To me, it never has been, and I don't even know if it really. I don't even think that's the definition because I don't know, just like a love, like a bond, like like a woo, like you look pretty, you look handsome. Let's like take a walk on the beach and look. It's like a beauty kind of thing in a way, walking on the beach. That was like the one thing for years, like people on online dating. I like to take long walks on the beach. I mean, really, it's like, oh my God, duh. But at the same time, it's like, well, that could be very pretty, like, because you're talking deep, you're having conversations, you're looking out. So yeah, that's what I would say, because I don't think that romantic is like just hitting the sack and bumping and grinding. That's not romantic. It truly
Right.
isn't.
I would hope not. I certainly want no part of that. But yeah, because I have a hard time understanding the terminology because words are confusing. Let's just admit words are confusing because people all have different meanings. I mean, even the way the asexual community has split asexuality into several different meanings, has already created confusion. And I think it's important for our audience to mention that briefly, because, this whole thing, people, they constantly like to remind us that asexuality and celibacy are not the same thing, which I know. And if I had to say, I would say celibacy is a lot stronger than asexuality, because asexuality is just where you lack a desire to do something. Whereas when you're celibate, you've made a commitment for some specific reason not to participate in it. And so people, and I'm sure there are people out there somewhere, they're really hard to find, but I'm sure there are people who are celibate but are not asexual. There are people that have reasons why they don't want to do sexual things, even though they might be attracted to somebody, because they have other reasons, So, yeah, it's important for there to be a distinction. But like we've mentioned before, asexuality and celibacy have a tendency to go together, because it's almost like you're celibate, you're accidentally celibate when you're asexual and you just don't care about it, so you don't seek it out, you don't try to find somebody, you don't try to have sex. And often when you're not trying to do something, you just don't do it. So you're, you're celibate by accident, which sounds funny.
Well, I think that there's a lot of very unhappy asexual females, because, I mean, on whole, even if you don't want the kissing, a lot of females do like to be cuddled. I don't know why it is, maybe because of the way they were raised, but it's very unfortunate. And
Yeah.
it's just unfortunate that men don't want to be cuddled more than women, because, men mainly want the sex. They mainly want to pounce on someone. And I don't know why that is. They mainly want some sort of an orgasm and go to sleep. That's what it seems like. And it's just so sad to me, because I don't find that that's a relationship. I find that that's using somebody. I mean, I would think that two people that are cuddling, feel like they're safe and they could trust one another. To me, that's like the form of love that I think is the most physical showing of love. You know what I'm saying? Because you even see animals. I mean, I've been putting these posts this one's saving that one, and this one's saying, "Mama, I'm not leaving you," and you see that, and it's love. But you don't see any sort of photos where a genital is in another genital saying this is love. We don't see that when we look at animals.
Yeah, no, we don't. And yet, for some reason, with humans, people tend to equate that with love. It's almost a disservice to the rest of the human body when you think about it. Isn't it weird that people ignore all of the good parts of the human body and are explicitly focused on the genitals? It's like, what about the rest? I mean, you have arms and legs and hair and a nose and lips. Everybody loves your lips. That's the thing. For some reason, everyone likes your lips. It has more views than your other videos. So, oh, nice teeth.
Yeah, the one. I was thinking about getting braces at some point. It's like I have one of two things. I either get braces to straighten it all out, or I get this plucked out.
I never had braces. My teeth are really crooked and weird shaped.
Oh, I like your gap. We already talked about this.
Yeah.
Has a gap.
Yeah, let's show people my gap. Yeah, I have a gap between my teeth.
Do you have cavities? Do you have a cavity all the way on this side and the back?
I might. Now, I've had a few fillings before. Yeah, and of course, I haven't been to a dentist in a long time, but all I know is that, yeah, I've had this gap between my teeth here as long as I can remember. And my teeth have been crooked, and some people have said while I was growing up that I should have braces to have my teeth straightened, but I was never having a problem with them. So I feel like that's more people just ideas that teeth have to be straight in a certain way. But as far as I'm concerned, if as long as I chew my food, I'm good.
I like your teeth. You don't have to do anything about them.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Another thing, we were talking about earlier on the phone, we were talking about, people, how some people want to have surgeries to modify their body one way, whereas other people want to have surgery to modify their body the other way. And I think that in itself is a very interesting topic, can make a whole episode. But I wanted to briefly mention it because, I feel like, first of all, we need to have people appreciate their bodies and appreciate them because for the most part, people's bodies are fine the way they are. But of course, I also think that somebody should be allowed to have surgery to change parts of the body that they want to have changed, especially if they have the money to afford it. They shouldn't be denied that, obviously. But I just think it's so weird how a lot of people, they have surgery for various reasons of beauty, to make themselves more attractive, to fit in better with society, like liposuction, people trying to have surgery to lose weight and weird stuff like that, which I feel like, yeah, sometimes it goes a little bit weird, but we have a society that is obsessed with the appearance of somebody's body. And maybe people can appreciate that, but why don't people care about the mind enough? They really don't. And that is so sad.
Although, there's the whole category of sapiosexuals, or in my case, sapio-asexuals. I personally I need to have some substance in somewhere in the skull in order for me to be attracted. I truly can't be attracted to someone that their ethics are totally off. They don't understand things. I can't. But apparently there's a bunch of liberals that say that if you're sapiosexual, there's some ism going on with you. You're being, prejudiced or biased because not everybody's like smart or whatever. But I mean, what do you think? It's like, what the heck? What is attraction? At some point we have to acknowledge that we are attracted to different people because of different reasons. Like, I know all the isms. There's sexism, there's racism, there's speciesism, and all of that. But it's like, at some point, it's a personal thing who you're attracted to. So how can you really help that you're being attracted to somebody's mind?
Well, yeah. Well, see, here's the thing about it. Now, isn't it weird that people have invented a romantic or a sexual orientation for each kind of person? Why is it that when somebody, so if a female is attracted to a male, if a biological female is attracted to a biological male, for example, if it's sexual, they call them heterosexual, but if it's romantic, they're heteroromantic. But why does loving a specific person automatically place a label on somebody? Because just because somebody might be attracted for whatever reason to a certain person who happens to be of a certain biological sex and a certain skin color and a certain height and a certain hair color and a certain mind that is smart and stupid at different aspects, that doesn't make them anything. Because you love somebody, that doesn't make you anything. It only means you're a person who loves somebody. That's all it should mean. And so even though I try to figure out where I am on spectrums of these different terms and what they mean, these labels should not define us that much, because I don't think that these labels, a a lot of these labels, specifically about being attracted to or loving a certain person, it should be about the person, not about their biological sex or their skin color, some weird, bizarre physical attribute. So like, let's say that somebody is, okay, let's suppose that somebody is attracted to fat people, okay? Like, okay,
Which there are.
yes. Yes, there are some strange places on Reddit and Tumblr and YouTube where this is a thing. There have even been like talk shows and weird stuff about this. But so if somebody falls in love with a person who's fat, okay, then that person loses weight, do they no longer love them? Like, how does this work? And then, or the reverse, as you hear, which is more common, like somebody's skinny, then they get fat, and then the person acts like they don't love them anymore. Like, what's up with this? Like I don't get it. I mean, if you look, first of all, if you want some big fat body, then you buy yourself a big stuffed animal. Okay, like, seriously, if you want something big to cuddle in, buy yourself a giant big stuffed unicorn. That's what you do. Okay? So yeah. Yeah, seriously. I'm bringing my friend to join us. this thing is
like hugs. You're hugging your unicorn.
Yeah, I swear this thing is bigger than I am. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna pet her. Him, her.
Look at
sex, unisex.
Look at the size of this leg and this hoof.
Oh, cute.
I know. Everyone should have one of these. These are amazing. Oh.
So cute.
Yeah. I actually have a lot of different stuffed animals, a lot of My Little Pony characters, and then you remember the Brownie, the stuffed horse. I'm gonna go get Brownie. Yeah. So here I have Brownie. You remember Brownie?
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and here I have my zebra. I don't really have a name for this one yet, or the giant unicorn over there. I need to have names for these things. I named this one Brownie because he's brown. Or it could be a she. I don't know its gender identity. We never know. They're stuffed animals.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like having dolls around. I have a lot of dolls in storage. You know, I remember there was one point, it was kind of when I first came out, I was buying all these dolls, and I had gone with this one person, and he saw, like, the dolls I had, and he's like, "Are you a child?" And I was like, I don't know. I was just, like, taken aback, because they just give comfort. They really do. That's why little kids have dolls.
Yeah.
Because it comforts them.
Well, let me tell you something. There have been many times when I have walked down the toy aisles in stores just to look. You know, I never buy anything, but I just like to look at all the cute stuff. Well, but here's the thing is I always like the girls department. I always have liked the girls department of toys and stuff. And here's why, because here's what you'll notice. The boys toy aisle will all be hard and plastic, and they'll have, like, you know, these action figures that are plastic and look like they could hurt somebody, and violence and army type stuff, and you know what I mean, and then cars, toy cars, and all kinds of things like that, and everything looks like it's hard and could be used as a weapon. And the only thing that I like that's somewhat considered a boy toy is, well, Legos. But everybody likes to go with Legos, right? You know, that's nice. But then if you look at the girls aisle, you're going to see stuffed animals. You're going to see dolls. You're going to see, you know, like houses and and like, pretend kitchen stuff, all kinds of neat stuff. There's so many fascinating girl toys, and I've always liked that stuff better. You know what I mean? There's a whole different thing, and it's just weird how gendered the toys are.
Yeah.
Like, people have this idea that boys play with these toys and girls play with these toys, and that's weird. Like, I was never that way. For one thing, I was always big into stuffed animals. I used to have a whole bunch of stuffed Dalmatians. Like, I was majorly into Dalmatian dogs. And I saw the movie 101 Dalmatians, and I used to have Perdita, the mother, the wife of Pongo in the story that was the mother of those original whatever 12 or 13 puppies, and all that. But I had all these stuffed Dalmatians, and I liked them. And people gave me a few other things, like I had some bears and stuff like that. And I remember that I gave away all my stuffed animals before I went in the Navy. I was trying to get rid of stuff, you know what I mean? But then later on, after that didn't work out, I ended up buying myself so many stuffed animal horse-related things. That's what happened.
I want to touch on this, and we should get back to this religion
I know.
topic, and then wrap it up. But
Yeah.
for another time. But I think it's interesting because I was thinking about it today, and I've thought about this before, that a lot of times you can tell boys who are gay, and not because they're looking at other boys, but because they're into girls' things more. But here's the interesting thing to me. What makes them actually attracted to the same gender? Why isn't it that they're like a female in what they like, or what traditional gender identities like? But what is it that makes them attracted to the actual gender if they're sexual? That's what I don't understand that part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I don't.
I've tried to figure this out too, because you'll notice there is a certain trend. There is a certain thing, and I know that the stereotypes can be false, and yet it does seem like a lot of the gay men end up also liking girly things, and that kind of thing, and there seems to be a connection there. But as to what makes them attracted to men in some sexual way or whatever other way, well, I wonder the same thing about the heterosexual women. I don't understand it. Like I'm trying to figure out, well, what is it about men that either straight women or gay men would like? What is there about being a man that's unique? What's special about it? I don't see it. I don't get it.
I guess for me, it would be someone that is, I'll tell you what I like. I've always liked the chest, the face, but I like more boyish or cute like gestures. I've never been one to like real like rugged, like I don't, just like you said, the toys. Me too. I don't like that dangerous kind of
Yeah.
cold kind of thing, Um, I like the protector aspect. But that's all I can actually say. I like good conversations, but I think that's all that I really like of a guy that I can like actually concretely touch.
Yeah.
I think that
Well,
there's some women that are really pretty, and sometimes I think to myself, like, what would it be like for me to be with them for the rest of my life? But I don't know. I just don't think that I would want that. Like, I just feel that two women living together, it's too the same, maybe? I don't know. I can't envision it. But I will say that I think that there's some like young women that are pretty. I'm attracted to beauty. I gotta admit, like, I'm aesthetical. Like, and also the personality and the mind. And I think that's why I like younger people, because I think that some older people, a lot of older people, I don't really like their thought processes. Most of them aren't vegan. They're a lot of them have children and I don't. So I can't relate on that aspect, except, I teach, but still, I just think that younger people have like fresher ideas that match mine. I think that I think that I'm what do you call it? Like a torch bearer, or I'm like a pioneer, because I don't see people that many people my age or older that are like me. And also another thing could have been, like, I went to this really liberal college for my MFA. I in the entertainment business. I've opened my mind to the different gender identities and whatnot. I've come to those terms, and so maybe that makes me younger too. Because if you're at a certain point and you get locked in, it's you're not you're growing at a slower pace with the times, if you are growing
yeah.
at all with
Well,
your
well, here's one advantage that people like you and I have over other people. And I think this is one of the biggest benefits of celibacy. But it's not just the celibacy, it's the fact of not being in any kind of relationship with somebody and living alone. You know, you get to work on yourself a lot. You really,
yes.
yeah, because then you get to think about what is it that I want to do? How do I want to live? Because if you're married, for example, and you have kids and all sorts of stuff that most people have, then if you want to change jobs or you want to move to a different state or different country, and you want to do different things, you want to become an activist about a certain whether you want to be an animal rights activist or you want to be political in some way, everything you do, you have to get permission from your partner, and you have to think about how it will affect your kids and all these different things. Whereas if you're a person who is, if you're, first of all, if you're a person who's single, and you do your own thing so that what you do affects you, but it doesn't affect some other person that's living with you, it's so much easier to change. And like I told you before in a previous episode, like if I had been, let's say if I had been married or something to a carnist and I went vegan and realized it was wrong to hurt animals and all, and it went vegan, like I couldn't have stayed with a carnist. It's like we would end divorce. Like I told you, I can't stay with somebody who would be so unlike me in terms of belief and action and way of living.
And
You know.
that's another thing that I would want in the religion. Because I've thought about this, and I'm the same way. I would not want to be with somebody that's eating meat. It would bother me because we're not on the same ethical basis. That person's inflicting pain. I'm not. I wouldn't want that in my refrigerator. I wouldn't even want like two refrigerators next to one another if his was in, one and mine was in the other. But at the same time, there's this part of me that thinks, well, if you're married and you really love the person, and you were talking about, well, what if the person turns fat or whatnot? I'm just like, it would, vows are meant to last. It's not that they do for a lot of people, but they are meant to. I mean, in Catholic, it's like to to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poor, till death do us part, right? That doesn't
Yeah.
happen for a lot of couples. To death, the death of the relationship, but not.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I'm just wondering, if we had this religion, if people would be able to divorce, but only under the circumstance if that person is causing pain to themselves or others. And I say to themselves because, well, you mentioned about, like, if they're overweight, or, I mean, if they're thin and then they get overweight. But let's think about this now. What if they're getting overweight? A lot of times that means you're abusing yourself, and there's no denying that. So is it because of depression, or is it because of your hormones or whatnot? Or is it because of something that you are doing? And then if you're inflicting suffering upon yourself, don't go thinking that you're not doing that to your partner too, because it's all about energy. And now you're putting yourself more at risk of having health issues and whatnot. So I do believe that people need to an extent, keep up their health if they want to have a good life at helping others too. All right, but that's not that, but let's talk about other things. What if the person starts drinking or drugs or smoking or whatnot? I mean, these are things that cause pain. So
Yeah.
I would like there to be the till death do us part, unless the other person is not living up to the highest standards of, a pain-free, like, suffering-free life. Because
Yeah.
otherwise it's really not fair to the other person, because now you're stunting the other person's growth, as far as I'm concerned. Also, we never want people to kill each other because they're in a bad marriage, because people still kill each other. They can just, like, get a divorce. Don't kill your partner, but they do it. So I would have to say that you would be able to do that only under the pretext if you were causing pain. Otherwise, stay with your partner, because it really does hurt people when they're in love. When something breaks up, it's devastating. It's like a death to somebody. And I know, because I have been in love, and it takes me time. It takes me like 1.5 times the amount of years that I was with that person to pretty much fully get over that person. But that's me. I don't know. Other people, it seems like they're it's easy for them to get over people. I've, like, noticed that. It's not
Yeah.
easy for me.
That's so weird. Like, I've noticed that with people, because a lot of young people these days, their relationships are meaningless and very short-lived. Like, each week they have a different boyfriend or a girlfriend, and then some people who get married and divorced like 7 times and weird stuff like that. Like, and it's like there's no commitment, no meaning to it. So they just go from one person to another person, and I think a lot of the I don't want to say this is true in all cases, but sometimes maybe it's the common factor in all those relationships why it didn't work out. So when you see a person's been through multiple relationships and it failed, so maybe something's wrong with them. You have to wonder after a while. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people keep looking to some other person to make them happy and fulfill all their needs, when what they really need to do, is they need to stay single. They need to stay and work on their own life and get themselves figured out. Because if you can't understand yourself, how was anybody else supposed to? You know?
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking, the last person I was with them for 3 years, and I just gave you my formula. So I should be upset about them for 4.5 years. Hmm. Well, I also wanted to state that, I never had, you know, I've been celibate from the intercourse, and but that doesn't mean that I don't, haven't loved the people. And,
Yeah.
some people say, well, you have to have like intercourse for you to really have your heart broken. I'm not denying that, but I don't think that that's like true, because I've loved other things. So,
Well, actually, first of all, people who say that are absolutely wrong. And here's why. Because there are people who do have intercourse with multiple people and they get over them quickly and they go on to the next person and they don't care and they're not heartbroken over it. Meanwhile, somebody can have a relationship for a certain length of time and then be heartbroken and feel bad, and it takes them time to grieve and get over it, even though they never had intercourse with the person. So clearly it's obvious that how physical or sexual somebody is with somebody really has nothing to do with what the relationship meant to them. That's pretty obvious.
I would like you to look for that video. I think I texted it to you. No, I think I Facebooked it to you. I think it's the last message that I gave you. I'm wondering if you could show this to everyone, because what he shares with people, and it's not about celibacy for life, but it's pretty darn close. And it's how a lot of men have treated women into pressuring them for the sex, but yet they want women to be like pure, so to speak. This is with a lot of men. And again, men can like sleep with so many women. But if women do it, even in this day and age, she gets a reputation for being like sluttish or whatnot. So I would love for you to share this. And I think we're allowed, because we're doing it like a news kind of thing. Can you go on your Facebook and broadcast that right now so people can see it?
Well, the thing is, I don't know how to do that exactly. Um, I mean, I may have to do like a separate video, kind of like I've done before, where I use Open Broadcaster software to record my screen, and then like I show me watching other videos online.
Oh,
That's all.
you mean you can't just put it on? Are you recording me on your computer right now?
Yeah, yeah, because it's recording through Skype right now, but
Okay,
I
but
don't.
can't you go to your phone, the Facebook Messenger, and press the link
Well,
and
actually,
show it?
unfortunately, I had to delete the Messenger app off my phone so I wouldn't keep getting annoyed by
Oh,
all those dick pics. I swear, there's people who message me all kinds of things, and I have had to block like at least 15 people now who have sent me pictures of their penis. And I don't know why. And and besides, my phone's always running out of space anyway, so it was constantly making all sorts of noise all the time. So unfortunately, my Facebook messages tend to be checked last because I it's unfortunately you get drowned out with all these strangers on Facebook messaging me unpleasant things.
well, let me text it to you right now, and then you can click the link on your text.
Well, yeah, we can try it. It's worth a
All right,
shot.
one moment, because I thought this was very important. I mean,
Okay.
people were telling me thank you for sharing it with me, and these were not celibate people.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
one moment. I'm finding it. Well, we're at like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I know we are. This is crazy.
Well, let's just hope that we our listener is someone with a long attention span. We're totally giving some great information. All right, I'm texting it to you, and
Okay.
I've texted it.
Okay. It should show up soon. Okay, there it is. We'll see. Okay, wait. Yeah, it
It's
looks like.
called Men, The Truth You Don't Want by Tony A. Gaskins Jr.
Oh yeah. Okay, this looks good. Let's see if it plays on my phone.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Trying to get to play here.
I hope everybody's okay with me resting, by the way.
You know, today came up, and I was laying there, my head was on the pillow, and I've been just spending time with the Spirit and being sensitive to the Spirit so that I can really be in tune. And I thought about when I met my wife, and I knew she was my wife. I knew she was the one. When we sat down and we talked, the first time we sat down and talked, we talked 6 hours. And there was no arguing, there was no debating, there was no bad energy. And we talked about everything. When I got up from that conversation, I said, this woman has everything and is doing everything, and it's everything that I would want in a wife. Like, I can grow old with this woman. And I was 21 years old. But see, there was something wrong inside of me, because everything that I had saw, everything that I had heard was not healthy. I had saw abuse growing up all around me. Friends, family, it was everywhere. I saw divorce. I saw cheating. I saw people who had been together all of this time and never got married. So what I saw is brokenness. I just saw a trail of broken hearts, a trail of lost, confused, hurting people. So I assumed and I thought that a relationship is something you just do. It's just like religion, or not religion, but it's like tradition. It's like tradition. You just do it because that's what you're supposed to do. But there's really no real heart or no real love in it. There's really no real loyalty. And you just with each other to reproduce, push the world forward by bringing children into the world. And so that was in my heart, that was in my mind. So I was not willing and ready to be a real man, a good man, but yet I wanted a good woman. So I was operating from a place of selfishness. And what I realized, so many men do the same thing, is we are unwilling to work on ourselves, but we want this woman to be our savior. We want this woman to be everything. We want her to be pure, pristine, perfect, but we want to be flawed. So we hold her to a standard that we don't hold ourselves, because we see ourselves as dirty, as average, as lowly, as worthless. And what I mean by that is I'm speaking spiritually, sexually. So as men, most men will lie down with countless women. But then if a woman lies down with countless men, she's all of a sudden the scum of the earth, the lowest of the low. And the reason why is because we feel her body is more precious than our body, and that her body should be praised, that her body should be preserved, and her body is a sacred place. So we say that and we feel that on one side, but then yet we feel her body should be saved to be defiled by us. So it's a sin if she's been touched by another man or many men, but then we see it as okay if we take her through the ringer, if we lie to her, if we cheat on her, if we disrespect her, then it's okay because we're flawed. So our excuse is that we're flawed. We're not perfect. We're human. We make mistakes. I'm just being a man. This is what men do. You're not going to find anything better except what I give you, or be single and die alone. That's really our posture and our message to a woman. And I remember this because when I met my wife, it was like I wanted this good woman but I wasn't trying to be a good man. And I thought I had her. And so what I wanted her to do is to be good for me, but to compromise her standards and let me be who I wanted to be who I was. And she wasn't with it. She was not with it, and she left me a few months into dating. Now, here's another thing that I did wrong. I took advantage of her lack of understanding of relationships and men. So I knew she had a good heart, but I knew she didn't understand fully men and relationships. So she thought and assumed that, yes, if you like a man, you're eventually going to have to lie down with him in order to keep him.
Uh-huh.
Although she made me wait longer than I had ever waited, there was a part of her that still said, if I don't give it to him, then he'll go elsewhere to get it. And that's what many women believe.
Mm-hmm.
But men know that's not really true. That if we love a woman, we have the strength to wait on that woman and to meet her at her standards. That truly we want her to make us wait. And we want the challenge of trying to get her to not wait. But here's where we get caught up, is we get caught up in ego. We get caught up in ego, and so we want her to do what's right, but then yet we want to challenge ourselves to be able to get it.
Mm.
And then if she does not give it up, we want to get butt hurt and have an ego and then leave her.
Mm-hmm.
Or go cheat on her and throw it in her face, knowing that she's falling in love, knowing that she's just trying to do what's right, knowing that she just wants to build on a firm foundation and have real love.
Mm-hmm.
But we would take that for granted, and we will try to take advantage of that. And we will try to manipulate this woman and deceive this woman and coerce this woman to live a backwards lifestyle like we're living.
Mm-hmm.
See, we want her to be lost like an upside down GPS because that's how lost we are. See, we want her to give in and to relinquish her power and to lower her standards because we've relinquished our power and we've lowered our standards.
Mm-hmm.
So we want her to be better than us, but yet we want her to still stoop to our level.
Mm-hmm.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Exactly.
You want a good woman, but you want to make her live a messy lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
You want a good woman, but you want to ask her to do things out of order. See, this is what I need you to understand. Young man, don't block your blessings. Don't take advantage of a woman that can be the woman that helps you change your life for the better. That can be the woman that helps you go to the next level. Don't take advantage of that woman. Don't try to get a good woman who has her head on right to compromise her standards and who she is to stoop to your low level of living.
Absolutely.
Asking her to compromise her standards.
Yes.
You need to elevate to her level.
Yes.
Become better and build real love on a firm foundation. See, this is where we going wrong. And I remember because I tried to do it. And the reason why I do what I do today is because God spared me. He gave me another opportunity to get the woman back that I had tried to take advantage of, that I had tried to get her to lower her standards and to live at my low vibration.
Vibration.
That's why I've committed and dedicated my life to the service of love and teaching love, because I made every mistake. And even when I got her back, she didn't chase me. I didn't chase her because I was operating from ego. But we just so happened to link back up and have a conversation. And it was two other people that brought us back together because they wanted to connect. So we end up connecting because we were the mutual friends. So when we reconnected, I saw I had another chance. And even in that moment, my wife still was learning and growing. And she knew what was right and she knew what she wanted, but yet at the same time, society said, if you don't give this man your body, then you won't be able to keep him.
Mm-hmm.
And men, we take advantage of that lie. And so many women actually believe that lie.
Yes,
and they believe
do.
it because we make them believe it. They believe it because we let them believe it. But if you ain't willing to go sleep with a man, what happened if you in the army and you just with men in training or in deployment? Or what happened if you go to prison? You go to jail. What happened if you go to a prep school with all boys? It's several times in our life to where we are not able to be with a woman. And we know how to do that. We know how to abstain. We know how to wait. But we take and we play on the insecurity that the world has planted in the minds of our women.
Mm-hmm.
So now we break her down. And guess what? She becomes a reflection of us. So instead of your life getting better, your life gets worse. And then that's when you start to say, oh, marriage is a scam, marriage is this, relationships are stupid, relationships hard. And you got everything negative to say about love, and it's only because you have no self-love. And because you hate yourself and you operating from a place of self-hate, now you make your woman stoop to your level and she starts to operate from a place of self-hate. So now you playing the game and she adapts and she learns how to play it better. And when she play it better, now you butt her. So you came to the game and you broke the rules. And then sometimes when you break the rules, a woman will play by the rules. But eventually she gets the strength. She finds out who she is. And now when she's ready to go, you on bended knee, crying and begging and pleading. But what is she worth? Because now you stripped her of all of her love. You stripped her of all of the dignity that she had for you. So now her real only option is to keep it moving with her life. But you want to hold on to her. But here's the thing. You still in a tug of war with your ego. So you'll get her back, and a lot of times you get her back and you do her worse than you did her the first time.
It's happened to me.
You cheat on her, and instead of throwing it in her face, you cheating on her just to console yourself, just to say, aha, I got you. But who really are you playing? You're not playing her. You played yourself. Because you're not just sinning against her. You're not just sinning against God. You're sinning against your own body.
Mm-hmm.
You're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for heartbreak. You're setting yourself up to be lonely. And then what's going to happen? Eventually, you're going to be left. And you're going to be turned over to a savage woman who she's been taking complete advantage of.
Exactly.
And all she knows is a savage heart. But she's smarter than you.
Mm-hmm.
She know how to play the game better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Now you finna be in a prison of self-hate. Now you about to pay a price. And now it's your turn to fall in love because she know how to make you fall in love. Now you fall in love, she rip your heart out your chest, spit on it, throw it on the ground, and stomp on it with a timber. The same way you did every woman you've ever dealt with. And now you crying and you cursing the name of God, you cursing the name of love, and you hate everything about it. But it's all to do with you.
Yes.
You refuse to have self-love. You refuse to be a real man.
Yes.
And now you hurt, now you struggling, and now you blaming everybody else except yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was relevant.
What did you say?
That was relevant.
I mean, I thought that he was great. I mean, he's not pro celibacy for
Well,
life, but
yeah, but I think there's truth in a lot of what he says, though. You know,
absolutely.
well, I think maybe men are holding women to a higher standard because they know that they're better than they are. You know, and it is very weird because you know how and this is something that's very common, although personally it's so weird because you know how there's some people who they are waiting for a virgin. They only want to marry a virgin, but you hear this with men who want a wife that's a virgin, but you don't often hear about it in the reverse. You don't hear about
Me, I can tell you, and that's one of the reasons that I dated younger guys too, because less likely to have been with more like women. I think sometimes the older that men get, the more sexual partners they have, because that's
yeah
just what they do. I mean, I'm not saying I want to go with like, somebody who's underage. I know, but I'm just, I mean, and also like, I mean, to an extent, it's good, as you get older, that you're with somebody who has at least some of the same life experiences. So, there's that sapio thing too, you
yeah
know. But
well but
and it's weird if like, somebody's like way, 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 way younger than yourself, even if it is legal. But I'm just saying that sometimes as like men get older, they get colder, they've had more
yeah
sexual experiences and stuff, and it's like I'm not like that.
yeah well but isn't that interesting? See, if a woman ever said that she was waiting for a virgin man to marry, for example, if she said that, I already know what people would tell her. They would basically tell her that she's not going to find that person because they don't exist. And why is that? Because men have a reputation. They have a reputation that they're highly sexual and that they are always going to have sex before they're married. And so there is much truth in what he said because basically men set a low standard for themselves, and society generally believes these low expectations that men are just bad, you know,
They
and
don't raise the bar. You're right.
yeah,
Society
yeah,
has not raised the bar.
yeah,
Might have raised the bar in stopping the sexual harassment to an extent,
yeah.
as a me
Well,
too, but they still haven't raised the bar as far as what you
mhm.
just said.
But yeah, perhaps you've heard this before. You've heard whenever men are doing something bad, people will say boys will be boys, basically meaning that's just the way males are. It's not going to change. And I don't know. I mean, that is definitely the message that society has sent as long as I can remember. It's sad. So, yeah, there's some truth in what he says. Men have low standards for themselves. It's very sad.
And I would like to just limit what I say, but briefly, that I had an incident where I was told about a project, and then when the person started discussing it with me, they basically baited and switched me, and then encouraged me to do some things that I did not want to do of the sexual
Yeah.
nature. And then um, one of the people affiliated with that person doesn't seem to understand why I'm so sensitive on what happened, and kind of seem like, oh, well, you shouldn't be speaking with men alone. Well, why does that person think that way?
Because they don't trust men. Exactly.
Because boys will be boys, just like you
Yeah.
said.
Yep. There is that expectation. And here's the thing about it. And yeah, obviously we've already made this longer than it should be, but since we're on the topic, when I explain about my gender identity and how I identify as female, this is a perfect example of what I mean. Because it's not about the body. That's not what it's about. It is that I don't have that behavior of other men. I don't have those low standards. I don't act that same way. I don't selfishly use people. And so, for all intents and purposes, I am not a man. It doesn't matter what my body is or how I was born. I'm not one of them. And I never will be.
Whoa, that's pretty deep. Thank you, Chastity Rose, for explaining that.
Yeah.
That's like another show for another time. I'd like to wrap this up though, and what should we do? I mean, should we make a church out of the celibate vegans? Should we make it a religious organization? Or should we, as we talked earlier in the show, not care about the government being involved in this? I mean, look, there's something to be said about making it formal with all the paperwork. For instance, there are people that just stay together. They don't get married. Sometimes it turns out great. Other times it doesn't. But what happens is if you don't have something in like writing formalized, it does get more difficult for both parties because there never was that like written agreement. So even though the separation of the church and the state, as we talked about, it doesn't make sense that they need to be involved, and the money aspect, that doesn't settle so much.
Well, what if now here's an idea. What if somebody wants to promote an idea? Perhaps we need to publish a book. We need to publish a book, have everything in writing, have that be the contract, have that be the agreement of what it is we're about. And why don't we have celibate marriages? Like, why don't we have the church of celibate marriages, like that promotes marriage and all the good aspects of love and relationships, but not having to include the sex? Because that is the one thing that's uniquely different that no other religion offers. They are only offering marriages under the context and expectation of procreative sex, and that's what the other religions are about. And so something that recognizes partnerships as valid as a marriage, but without sex, that would be like a very key, unique feature of whatever we start, whether we call it a religion or philosophy, or whatever you call it. That is a very unique idea that is not offered anywhere else. If you're a Mormon or a Catholic or Muslim or Jew or Hindu, like, I don't think there's anybody else that actually has that idea. And every time that you look on Google and search for celibate marriage, you find that there are people who they're married to somebody and they're not having sex, but it was always started with the idea originally that they would. But does anybody ever go into a relationship with the same dedication where they're devoted to that person till death do us part, but without that expectation of selfishly using them for sex? Does anybody do that? And we're the first.
No,
We,
it's usually, yeah, because it's usually looked at as a negative. If you put celibate marriage in, if you don't find us, then you're finding articles what to do if your marriage has become sexless, you know? And it's like, oh God, stop.
yeah, I know.
We gotta
Like,
put ourselves higher in the Google search.
I know, and I look at these articles and I'm like, is this a problem? Like I thought that's like a dream, you know, like a celibate marriage, like the good without the bad, you know, like it's kind of like that one article. I recorded a video of that one article about how men who were more willing to give up meat than they were sex. Something like that, that article you sent me a long time ago. And I reacted to that in the video, that article. I read that and I'm like, what? Like I'm a celibate vegan. I'm a vegan virgin, and I don't have either sex or meat. So how is this a problem? Is this a struggle for other men? Like what?
You know, in the Facebook group, Celibacy Chronicles, which mainly contains people that are abstaining, not celibate, abstaining.
Yeah.
You should change it. But and that's actually where I found that video that you just played. So there's some good things that come up. But one person said, I heard that if people were sexual to begin with, then it's harder to become celibate than people who have always been celibate. So there might be something to that. Because, you know, if you've done anything before, then you're always going to, there's always going to be some like hint that reminds you of those days, you know?
Well, it's like smoking. People
That's
say
what I was going to say.
yeah, people say the best way to stop is to never start. It's true. When you've never done something, it's easier because for those who have done it, whatever it may be, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, other drugs, or sex, whatever, because they've done it before and they've had that experience, then they will always know what that's like, and they may end up going back to it because they miss it or whatever. That's why, like I've said before to people how, like people who've tried to tell me I need to get laid, and they say, well, you know, you need to learn to, if you have sex, you might enjoy it. And I said, well, if I enjoyed it, that would be a bad thing, because what if I tried it and liked it and then I wanted to do it again? Whereas if I never start, it's easier and I can be the way I have always been. You know, that's the way I think. That makes sense.
No, it does make sense for sure. Let me, real quick before we go, I want to know what that title was when I was brainstorming the name of a religion. I like your idea about the book, though. One moment here.
Yeah, maybe I can find it if I look back at at your emails.
Okay, well, whoever does first.
Okay.
You don't see me because I'm looking.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay.
Where is it? Oh, where is it?
Yeah, I have so many emails from you and from everybody else that it's hard to find things. Yeah.
Here it is. The Church of Noncarnist Contact. Spirituality. The Church of Noncarnist Contact Spirituality, based on Christian ethics and open to consciousness. Of course, you know, that's just what I put.
You know, Monique, one thing I'll always say about you is you come up with really long titles. seriously, like you have the longest title ever for your Facebook group. It has so many words in it that.
I
But
like to try to encompass everything, Chastity Rose. That's the reason why.
Exactly.
Because if I keep it too short, there's always something that could be misinterpreted.
I mean, let me tell you, okay, here's what I do on my videos, actually on our podcast specifically. There's tags that you put in when you upload videos. Well, I have just about every tag. My tags are as long as the titles you come up with because I have like celibate, asexual, vegan, virgin, marriage, love, celibacy, chastity, abstinence. I have all of these words as
mouth.
Mouth. Oh yeah.
Add that one.
Yeah.
Our ratings skyrocket.
Yeah, because that's all anyone cares about, apparently. Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. I guess we should end our recording now. We're already past 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Well, I told the pastor that I was on the plane with, I said, our shows are as little as 25 minutes and as much as 3 hours. And I started laughing. But anyway, I noticed that I was starting to yawn, but I think that might be a good thing, not because of boredom, but because I think that people probably a lot listen to this as they're falling asleep. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's good like stuff to listen to as you're like trailing off. I don't know if you listen to the radio or programs, podcasts and stuff, but that's what I like to do. So I get like a lot of pertinent info and then I trail off. So maybe if we like yawn, that'll help them now go to sleep.
Monique, it's 3:28 a.m. where I'm at. You realize I should be asleep? But you remember, I waited for you so we could do our show, and it was the longest show ever. Okay.
Thank you for waiting for me. I went to the grocery store, though, for vegan products. Just remember that, and organic.
So. Yes, that's important. So.
But and also one of those, maybe we've talked about this before. We probably should reach out to some of these products and ask if they want to, be sponsors because we need some help. We need help.
Yeah, I know. It's like contact these people and say, hey, would you like your products advertised on a show about veganism and celibacy? And then just watch as they hang up on us. Our message is so unpopular, but so awesome.
We also have to tell people really quickly, we were making some calls to different businesses and telling them and asking them to go vegan. And I just went by that Italian place. I didn't realize they're like a chain, Carrabba's or something like that. Huh. My mother knew of that. Yeah. So, and we got an email back from them. They were like thanking us. Another thing, I promise that I will get back to people that are emailing you. I want to show that I really care about the people that are commenting. I can't get comments on my YouTube, like on my phone, so I don't know. So you have to tell me, Chandler, Chastity Rose, unless I go to a, regular computer. And also, if you could possibly make a comment, if you have been listening to this and you feel it's a good idea to make a religion or a religious organization or the book, like Chandler said, or Chastity Rose said, because we would really like your opinion. We have gone through the ringer, just like that man in the video said. Men have really made women go through the ringer. It could be on the other, shoe as well, females to males, not usually as much. But I mean, it's so upsetting. Chandler has Chastity Rose always has to hear, you know, oh, you should just get laid. I always have to hear, oh, you haven't met the right person. And it's like, we're tired of listening to this. We want to be legitimized. And that's why today I came up with the idea maybe we should have a formal religion, you know, or spirituality, something that could connect all of us where we can point to it and say, see, there it is. See?
But I just had a thought. You know how you've met the right person? When they don't tell you to get laid.
And I've told you before, I hate that expression. I always think of a chicken laying an egg whenever I hear that. And which is gross to me anyway, because I don't want to be eating animal products, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, see, here's the deal is I don't like, I don't eat animal products, and I don't like things that come out of vaginas either.
I don't either.
Yeah. We need to stop our recording. We've been having too much fun.
Well, I'll let you have the last word. You can say bye-bye with your new name, Chastity Rose.
All right. Well, thank you to our audience for listening. This has been Chastity White Rose and Monique Lukens, the co-host of the Celibate Vegan Voices podcast, having the longest episode, but perhaps the most interesting ever. So thank you for listening and putting up with us, and I hope you learned something. Good night, everybody.
Subscribe. Bye.
Yeah, like and subscribe and comment. Let us know your thoughts. What would you like covered in a future episode?